Hello, welcome to the Hawk's Nest. Get off. Seahawks lose. Let's dive in.
3 at the 8 with a trip set right. Russell from the shotgun. Russell has time. Pump fakes. Now he looks. Now he's got to get rid of it. A flag is down. But the throw to the corner of the end zone was caught by Tyler Lockett.
There are those type of losses in the NFL that are easier to stomach than others. For instance, your team is in a super competitive game. It's going back and forth. Your team has the lead at one point. But then on a last second, great miraculous play, they happen to lose. Not too hard to feel okay about that. Your team was competitive. They were in it. It was a good game. As well, I'd even argue that in blowout losses, you as a fan can somewhat feel okay about those games because, hey, your team didn't show up from the jump. They had the doors beat off of them. It's a long NFL season. Every once in a while, we lay an egg. Then there's another type of loss, and this would be the type of loss the Seahawks experienced this past Sunday against the Ravens, where you are just thoroughly beaten. And not because you didn't show up, but because you were outplayed, outcoached, and you were beaten in all three phases of the football game, offensively, defensively, and special teams. And it's very disheartening from my standpoint to watch this because so far this year we've played two playoff teams. That would be the Saints and the Ravens. We can make an argument about whether or not the Rams are going to be in it at the end of the year, but by my assessment, we've played two playoff teams. And in those two games that we've played, both at home on our home turf, we have lost in every phase of the football game. And we're a team that's supposed to be super strong in every phase of the football game. Pete Carroll doesn't like any weak links in his phases. But yet these teams come in and they handle us quite easily. We're not able to generate any more pass rush once again. Granted, we were in this game initially through the first half, right up until the point that Russell threw the pick six to Marcus Peters. But again, our defense looks like it's holding on for dear life. Russell looks like he has to play superhuman for us to win. And it's just not a good look. I had thought as we went into this season, once we had made the trade for Jadeveon Clowney, that we'd have just enough from a pass rush standpoint, especially if we could hold on until Jaron Reed got back, that we would be able to be at least average defensively. And because our offense would be so good, we would be able to overcome maybe some inadequacies on defense that we had. But unfortunately, the defense has not just been bad. It's been, in my assessment, really, really bad. And the offense has just not been as great as they need to be for us to kind of overcome that. There's still a long season ahead of us. We've got the majority left, right? I believe 9 games. There's still a bye week ahead. The trade deadline's still here. We picked up a guy today. Pete Carroll's teams historically have always seemingly gotten better as the year goes on. So I'm not trying to cast a pall over this season and this team, and I'm not trying to say that the game is over. Certainly they can still be competitive. Certainly they're still in it. Injuries can happen. Attrition sets in, all those factors. But right now as we stand, this team is going to have a hard time getting to the Super Bowl. All right, we're going to do a few extra quick hitters this week because I don't want to come off as too much of a negative Nancy and seem overly cynical. There's actually a lot of positivity to glean off of this team, and I think it's worth balancing some of the negative with that positive. So first up, the Seahawks have a new dynamic duo to come for the next few years. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are going to be absolutely money for this team. You saw it in that first half when Russell was able to complete 2 big deep balls to both DK and Tyler. Obviously, DK had a little bit of a tough run in this game where he had a 3rd down drop and then he had a late fumble that sort of sealed the win for the Ravens. But he's shown enough to me, and when I look at his statistics as you balance it up against guys like Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson in their first years, he's right there with them. He's right in the hunt of those guys who everyone said he couldn't even sniff their jock strap. And yet he's there with them statistically. And if you, to the eye test, at least to me, he looks right there as far as being a competent player in that realm. Do I see him being a guy who's going to get 1,800 yards receiving year in, year out? No. But as a deep threat, and especially with Russell's deep ball, he's going to be absolutely money. As well, the mix between these two, they each give you a different skill set. So when you go up against teams that have a taller cornerback, let's say, you can move Tyler out there as a mismatch and let him utilize his quickness and speed to get around him. If you've got a shorter cornerback on the other side, you can then move DK over there to allow for him to see if he can maybe moss a few guys. I think it's just going to be really nice to watch how they match them up and watch, especially with DK's maturation and as he gets better, because I will most certainly expect him to take a huge jump into his second year as he gets more comfortable in this offense and with this team.
Trip set right. The throw across the formation, knocked down. was right there. Marquis Blair to knock it away from the tight end.
What a nice showing by Marquis Blair in this game, and a breath of fresh air that secondary desperately needed. On a day when Tedrick Thompson was once again beaten on a deep ball that he was supposed to have deep coverage on, Marquis Blair was everywhere all over the football field. He was making tackles in the running game. He was good in coverage, knocking balls away, being sticky in coverage. He looks really good, actually better overall in the coverage game than I thought he would coming out of the box. And it does bear the question out, what took so long for this guy to get into the game? I know the coaching staff loves them some Tedrick Thompson, and they have throughout their time. We made a trade today which would seem to seal Tedrick's fate as having probably never getting back onto the field as a starter again at safety for the Seattle Seahawks. But beyond that, Blair looks great. He looked like a second-round pick out there. He was quick, fast, where he needed to be, and he's a guy who wants to lay out that wood, which is what we do need in this defense, a little of that nasty edge. We need some dogs on this team right now. We got a lot of good, nice gentlemen out there, it seems like. Some really good guys. We need a little bit more edge, and this guy's going to provide it.
And it's going to be Edwards, and he's tackled for a loss. And it's Jadeveon Clowney.
So as we're filming this today, the Seahawks did make a deal, getting Quadre Diggs. They call him Houdini Diggs. What a great nickname that is. From the Detroit Lions for a 5th-round pick. The Lions send back to us a 7th-round pick. So pretty good value in that respect. Certainly Seattle needed some help in the secondary. Watching Tedrick Thompson once again get beat on that deep ball early on just made me want to just personally walk down to the field and rip him off of it. So it's good to see him there. As well, this guy seems to be an interchangeable type safety, a lot like what we're seeing with Marquis Blair, where you're able to move him either from free safety to strong safety. I'm not sure if the move is precipitated because there's problems with Bradley McDougall's back. He's had some knee issues. Maybe they're potentially looking at shutting him down long term. But the guy is signed for a couple years. It's not just a short-term flyer type deal like that Hardy-Nickerson trade early on in the season. So it's good in all those respects. He looks like a good player. Certainly the Lions player is always good when you see Lions players hating to see him go. They went to Twitter and sort of cast like, what? This guy's being traded? Huh? He seems like a very firm part of that locker room. And a dog. We need more dogs on this team, as I was saying with Marquis Blair. We need more guys with kind of an edge out there on the football field. And this guy seems to have it. So while I don't think he's going to change our fortunes defensively overnight because he can't rush the passer and he can't fix these soft zones, but he will give us a little bit more physicality in the secondary and potentially another guy who's maybe not a ball hawk, but he's going to get you the occasional interception, which we're not getting at all right now at all. Well, it's official. Special teams unit kind of sucks. A lot of people are hammering Coach Carroll in this game because he didn't go for it on 4th down in the 3rd quarter. And they're posting up this great thematic symbology of how in this one decision, when you juxtapose it against Harbaugh, who did go for it on the same kind of play and was able to convert it, that this was the difference of the game. This is the difference between the coaches right here. I'd say no, it wasn't. I have no problem with Coach Carroll trotting out his field goal kicker in that moment. This is the reason you paid Myers the money you did when he came off his Pro Bowl season with the Jets. This is why, to kick those field goals, to hit those field goals. This team is going to be in a lot of close games. It's the nature of the beast. It's how Pete Carroll has built this team and how he plays football games. So when you're in a lot of close football games, you need to hit your field goal kicks when you kick them. And if you have a field goal kicker who's really kind of dicey and it's going to be a problem, because you're really going to notice it on the scoreboard. And it seems whatever caught Sebastian Janikowski up and Blair Walsh up when they arrived here on the scene seems to have caught Myers up as well. I know CenturyLink is not the easiest stadium to kick field goals in, and certainly that end of the end zone, that northern end, as I talked about in one of our other episodes, has been hellacious for field goal kickers. But the point still stands. Your special teams unit is not special. It's really a detraction right now. It's a negative for this team. And it's not as glaring because right now you have so many problems defensively. But it is a problem, and it needs to be fixed, if not this year, then in the offseason. It's pretty rare that I don't want to be right about something, but this is one point that I hope I'm completely wrong about as we go forward. When I look at Pete Carroll and his time here in the 10 years that he's been here as the Seahawks, the number one thing that stands out to me is that he stays true to who he is, his philosophy, his principles. He manages and runs this football team exactly the same way today, I believe, as he did when he walked in the door. And this is both a good and a bad thing. It's good in the respect of it helps us consistently be the winner that we have. It keeps players in that place where they can get the most out of their abilities, I believe. But there's a negative to this as well. And then look at the Patriots for a comparison's sake, because Seattle in a lot of ways is a lot like the Patriots of the NFC. We've been to multiple Super Bowls. We've been consistently winners over that period of time, getting to the playoffs all but 1 or 2 years during that span. But there's a keen difference between these two teams. When you look at a guy like Bill Belichick, he comes from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. Bill Parcells is an old school type coach, right? Back in 1990, he won a Super Bowl with the Giants. They went up against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have the K-gun offense, no huddle. They're going to run right up the field on you, throw all over the place, score 1 trillion points. You can't stop them. So what did the Giants do? They ran the hell out of the ball. They must have had 50 running attempts in that game, just kept the ball out of the offense's hands for the Bills, and they won a really tight, close game. Well, Belichick comes from that tree. So he gets to the Patriots. What does he do when he walks in the door? Establishes a run-centric team that's going to play to its defense. And in Tom Brady's first few years there, that's exactly what they were. Tom was there to manage the game, hand the ball off a lot of the times for a majority of the time. But then Belichick realized as time went on that he had a Hall of Fame quarterback in his midst. And maybe he wants to utilize that. And so he started to change his philosophy. He was one of the first coaches to bring in and implement the spread concepts that were taking over the college scene. He brought in guys like Wes Welker and Randy Moss to give Tom Brady some real able pass catchers that he hadn't had up until that point. He rebuilt his football team to be built around the offense. And now, what have we seen over the last few years? Tom Brady's arm starts to fall off a little bit. He can't make exactly all the throws he used to be able to make. Belichick again adjusts his offense. What does he do? He plays it back towards the defense, reinvigorates the defense with talent, again becomes a run-centric team. You see Brady back under center running I formation a lot of the time. He's adapted. He's adapted to the game, to the changes at play. And over the 10-year span that Coach Carroll's been a coach, there's been a lot of changes that have happened. For instance, Carroll loves to run the zone read scheme or the zone run, right? Outside zone, inside zone. But the problem with that to a degree is the NFL has taken a lot of steps over the last few years to negate the zone run. For instance, crackback blocks, chop blocks, backside blocks. They've really made certain things hard that used to be very easy in the zone scheme to block up. And so it's made it a scheme that is still functional and still can work very well, but it has some problems in trying to make it work with the new rules and the way they've been implemented. As well, on the defensive side of the football, what's happened over the 10 years since Pete Carroll's been a coach? Well, the NFL's cracked down on those holding penalties by the corners, right? So you can't get your hands on the receivers like you used to, which used to be a staple of this team and how we used to cover players. You've got to keep your hands off or that flag's coming out. But Carroll's not adjusted really to these rule changes and the way that the league's gone more to an offensive-centric system, to where it's played now to where the offense is made to be successful and the defense is lined up a little bit behind the 8 ball in the way that the rules have been put out. Carroll's going to need to have to adapt here. I don't know that I have the answer as far as what he needs to do, but he's got to implement something new. His scheme right now has gotten tired. Look at the other teams in the league that are running it. How's the Falcons defense this year? Are they doing very successful? They run the same scheme we are. Nope, they're getting beat on pretty good. The Chargers, while they have been without Derwin James, they've still got their good pass rushers. They still got a lot of good talent on that defense, but they haven't looked special or phenomenal either. There could be a going thought here to say that this defense has seen its day, that it's very all well and good to say we're going to stay in our base defense. We're not going to be overly complicated. We're just going to come at you. But the other part of that is that you're giving up a big part of what is built into the modern strategy of the NFL game. You're not adding in wrinkles offensively for easy completions, let's say. You're not adding in things defensively that help them out to confuse a quarterback. The quarterbacks on these teams know exactly what they're going to see with our defense nearly every snap. They're not uncomfortable because they're not confused. They understand their reads and they go to it and they know where to go. And Seattle's doing nothing to counter that. And I don't know that we're going to be able to do anything to counter that in season right now. But as we move into this off season, it is going to be very important for Carroll to relook at this situation and see if he can't find some different wrinkles to implement. He tried to go to this 4-3 base thing, but again, built within that is still the functionality that you're going to stay in your same defense a majority of the time. And so it has still been just as easy as when you were a nickel for quarterbacks to read and pick apart. Short, easy completions have been made easier and easier over the last few years. And short, easy completions are the death knell for this defense in a lot of ways. Because if a quarterback decides he will be patient and take the easy completions and he can scramble a little bit like Lamar Jackson did, then they will pick this defense apart over and over and over again. And during further research on this, there are 3 statistics that really jump out on this that nail this point home for me in regards to Carroll. First, 24. That's what we're on pace for right now, 24 sacks as a team. That would be by far the lowest in the Pete Carroll era. I mean, that even includes the 2010 season where he had just walked in the door, inherited the roster, was still turning things over. You had guys like Raheem Brock rushing the quarterback. Yeah, he had 33 sacks that season. We're on pace for 24 this year. 12 interceptions. That's what we're on pace for this year as well. That would also be the lowest in the 10-year Pete Carroll era by far. 22 was the next lowest. So that's pretty far down, right? 12 interceptions for the season, less than 1 a game. And then the final one's 15. 15 forced fumbles. Again, this would be the lowest in the Pete Carroll by far. All of those 3 statistics put you in the bottom half of the league. The sacks one would put you as the last, behind everybody else in the league. And potentially you'd be right there with the interception and forced fumble mark. When you have a team that's built to give up yards between the 20s, fundamentally within that, you are going to need to generate sacks. You are going to need to generate turnovers because you cannot just count on that team always kicking field goals. There's got to be another factor that comes into play defensively, a feather you can stick in your cap as a benefit and a plus. But we're missing those right now. And this just again shows where the hole is right now with this defense. All right, I hope I wasn't too negative in this episode. We've had a bunch of new subscribers here in the last few weeks. I'm usually not this bad with these episodes. I tend to be pretty positive. I just want to be realistic about this team and realistic about what I'm seeing on the football field. I didn't create this channel to be sunshine and roses at all times when there are dark clouds ahead. This isn't a bad team. This isn't a team that still couldn't potentially get to the Super Bowl. This is a game where it's a long season and there are ebbs and flows, and we've seen teams get hot. Even teams with really bad defenses suddenly get hot at the end of the year and get to the Super Bowl because they can just ride that wave. Look at the Colts against the Bears a couple years ago where their run defense went from being horrific to being the best in the league almost overnight. So those changes do happen. They can occur, and the talent level is there. You've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. You've got a Hall of Fame coach. You've got some good parts and pieces all over this football team. They just need to come together. We get to play the Falcons this week, who Steve Smith calls the get right team, where if you're having some problems or issues, you're going to get right against this team. And certainly them looking like they're going to have a high ankle sprain on Matt Ryan and he might miss this game should help them in that respect. Hopefully we can get back onto the winning side of things, keep stacking those wins back up and get back into contention to maybe push for that division title and that first round bye, which I have been having my eye on since the start of the season. Thank you as always for watching. We just crossed 500 subscribers. I could never have imagined in February that we would get here this quickly, this fast. It's a testament to how awesome the 12s are out there. You guys are so supportive and kind and nice, and your comments have done so much to continue to improve this channel. And so keep giving me those suggestions, keep helping me make this channel get better. Let's see how far we can push this thing. Thank you as always for watching, and please do not ever forget, even when we lose, go Hawks.